Hi everyone, welcome back to another journey through history with an autism power time machine. If you like what I'm trying to do here, feel free to do the usual YouTube pleasantries. This time out, we are going into or above the jungles of Vietnam on board and flying toward the Bell UH-1B Iroquois. Okay, it's a Huey. We all know it's a Huey. So, let's not delay any longer. Hop on board. Turn up the tunes, you fortunate sons. We're going to ride with the Valkyries all the way to Nam. The kit I have today is the Bell UH-1B Huey in 1/72nd scale from Italeri. It's officially licensed to, if that's your thing. I can't find a parts count, but from memory the sprue numbers didn't go above 60. These are spread over 3 sprues, 2 in a dark green plastic, and 1 crystal sprue for the windows. You get 3 decal sets with slightly different paint schemes. 1 US Army, 1 for the Royal Australian Air Force, RAF, and 1 for the Japan Self-Defense Force, JSDF. There's another, I believe older, boxing that also includes US Marine Corps decals. This boxing from 2010, but the tooling is from 1994, but at a fair price of £12.49 from an internet store, but prices seem to hover around this mark. What is it like to build? I hear you all ask. It is good, not great. I think its rated skill level of 2 is a bit outdated, and more matches its time at initial release over 30 years ago. The molding is pretty good. Some tiny bits of flash here and there and not difficult to clean up. There are some small parts that may not want to take, like the T-veins on the nose. There is no dent or hole for them, and there are no instructions to drill it either. Some tiny parts in the cockpit, such as the foot pedals, joystick and collector, but these do have nice holes or slots to fit into. With this being an A-craft, we encounter a similar issue that we did with the ME-262 a while back, where you have to build the cockpit and cabin area, prime and paint it and assemble the fuselage around that. I was able to figure out I could avoid breaking the flow like this by not fitting the roof or windows, and it left more than enough room to get brushes in to paint the interior. The decals weren't great either. They took a lot of soaking to get off the backing paper, and they felt very stiff. I don't know if this is just an Italeri thing in general, or just this kit. Newer kits might have better sheets. Or this may be the wake-up call I need to get some proper softener and fixer solutions. I did find this a fun challenge, but this was my first helicopter model, so there may be a novelty factor. I am happy with the end result. Taking inspiration from an experimental paint scheme to get the one I painted on, avoiding using a lot of the decals as well. Technical specifications. Name, UH-1B Iroquois, Huey. Type, medium utility helicopter. Manufacturer, Bell Helicopters. Production date, 1956 to 1987. Number produced, over 16,000. Service life, still in service, UH-1Y Venom. Users, USA, all branches, Australia, Japan, Afghanistan, Albania, Argentina, Belize. Oh wow, lots of countries use it. We'll be here all day. Service ceiling, 11,500 feet to 19,390 depending on weight. Max speed, 138 miles per hour. Cruising speed, 126 miles per hour. Empty weight, 4,500 pounds. Max gross weight, 8,500 to 9,500 pounds. Engine, Lickerming T53L11 turboshaft, producing 1,100 shaft horsepower. Main rotor size, 48 feet diameter. Occupancy, pilot and co-pilot. 7 passengers or 14 troops. Why you can fit more troops with all their gear than just passengers, I don't know. Or 6 stretchers. Maximum cargo capacity, 3,880 pounds. Armament, dual-mounted M60 machine guns, externally mounted M60, 2.75-inch rockets, nose-mounted grenade launcher, missiles, 14 angry troops with M16 rifles. The Huey's origins lie in 1952 when the U.S. Army recognized the need for a helicopter that was smaller, had more power, and was easier to maintain. In November of 1953, the Army refined its requirements for a helicopter capable of medical evacuation, medevac, general utility, and instrument trainer roles. The brief was answered by 20 companies, including Bell Helicopters with their Bell 204 helicopter. On the 23rd of February, 1955, the U.S. Army announced its decision and ordered 3 copies of the Bell 204 for testing under the designation XH-40. Prior to the XH-40 first taking to the skies on the 20th of October, 1956, powered by a prototype Lickerman YT-5301 engine with 700 shaft horsepower with Bell's chief test pilot at the controls, the Army had ordered 6 YH-40 service test models. During 1957, the other 2 XH-40s were produced. Finally, in 1959, the Army awarded Bell a contract for 182 helicopters under the designation HU-1 and officially named the Iroquois. The HU-1 designation is the origin of its more widely known and accepted name of Huey, it being such a popular nickname for the aircraft that it was cast into the anti-torque pedals. The Huey name even survived the Department of Defense Unified Naming System change in 1962. The Huey now became the UH-1. The UH-1A was praised for its turbo shaft engine. It was superior to piston engines, but at 770 shaft horsepower, it was still underpowered. So they upgraded the engine for the UH-1B, a stretched version which was developed from the Model 205, to the T-53L5 that produced 960 shaft horsepower. As the Hueys served in Vietnam, it was steadily given more and more powerful engines, allowing it to carry more weight, particularly in the form of heavier weapons. The UH-1C fixed the aerodynamic problems of these armed gunship UH-1B and gained an engine with 1,100 shaft horsepower. Eventually, all B Hueys got this engine. The C got an extensive upgrade package, a new rotor design that reduced retreating blade stall in a dive and a higher airspeed. It also enhanced overall maneuverability of the airframe. The extra power and larger rotor of the C model called for a longer tail boom which incorporated a wider chord vertical fin on the tail rotor pylon and larger synchronized elevators. Bell also introduced a dual hydraulic control system for redundancy, as well as an improved inlet filter system for the dusty conditions found in Southeast Asia. The UH-1C fuel capacity was increased to 242 U.S. gallons, and gross weight was raised to 9,500 pounds, giving a nominal useful load of 4,673 pounds. Production of the C model started in June 1966 with a total of 766 aircraft produced, including 5 for the Royal Australian Navy and 5 for Norway. The upgrades and varying specs for the many U.S. military branches drove the Huey's development. The Marines wanted their own Huey. This was called the E variant despite being a B at its core, and later CS. This version was made of aluminum to resist corrosion, Marine Corps-compatible radios, rotor brake for shipboard use, and a roof-mounted rescue winch. The USMC had the models delivered from 1964, later upgrading the E to have an engine with 1,400 shaft horsepower. The Army adopted this version as the M and upgraded CS with this engine as well. The Air Force's Huey had a General Electric T-58 turboshaft engine, which they had a large amount of in inventory from the previous HH-3 Jolly Green Giant rescue helicopters. The T-58 engine had its output shaft to the rear. The Huey had to have a separate offset gearbox, SDG or speed decreaser gearbox, at the rear, and shafting to couple to the UH-1 transmission. So what was the Huey doing in the war that made it so famous and required it to constantly be upgraded? Simply, the Huey did everything it was designed to do and more. Helicopters like the Huey gave military planners unparalleled flexibility. It could get men and materials into places in hours instead of days. Fire support didn't just have to come from fast jets an hour after asking or artillery anymore. Close air support could now be very close and very fast. Wounded troops could get to hospitals faster. Downed pilots, Marines. Special Forces troops could be extracted from sticky situations faster and somewhat easier. There was nothing it couldn't do. Being on the front line so much and was inevitable that Hueys came under direct ground fire, from rifles at the beginning of deployment to anti-air missiles later on. Unlike fast jets who had speed at low altitude and runways far from the front to keep them safe, Hueys didn't have these luxuries. This led the troops on the ground to make their own modifications. Crews designed and fitted their own mounting for guns, rockets, missiles, and grenade launchers. They even fitted wire-guided TOW missiles and Vulcan miniguns for door gunners. Sorry, where was I? Oh yes. Bigger guns, faster top speed, better troop, and cargo carrying capacities. Bell saw the needs, saw the shortfalls, and made changes to match. A bigger body, more powerful engines, double the engines, better flight controls, more firepower, bigger speakers for psychological warfare and propaganda. Ride of the Valkyries is optional. The Huey was so widely used it became the face of the war. In fact, you could argue that if World War II was a war where the aircraft carrier proved its worth, the Vietnam War was a war that proved the helicopter's worth. Back home and across the world, footage of troops with M16 rifles, M60 machine guns, thumper grenade launchers jumping out into the jungle, door gunners raking tree lines, medics pulling wounded into safety under enemy fire and flying low and fast with smoke streaming from gun barrels and rocket pods. Be it news reports, music videos, films, or TV shows, these images imprinted on people so much that when asked about the Vietnam conflict, the Huey is one of the first things that springs to people's minds. Even now, 50 years later, the Huey is seen as key symbol of the war. Video games like Call of Duty have the Huey featuring heavily in cutscenes, plot points, and interactive sections. War Thunder has multiple versions. From a few nations you can fly, skill level dependent. Star Trek has a Huey in it, the one with the whales, the nuclear vessels one. The Huey has even graced anime studios, Gate being the one that springs to my mind. The United States Marine Corps, however, they either love a bargain, keep being told no, or are just so autistically afraid of change. I have ASD, so I can make this joke. The Huey and its meaner brother, the Cobra, are still in service today, although these are heavily upgraded from their originals known as a UH-1Y Venom and AH-1Z Super Cobra respectively. Many of the retired military Hueys ended up in civilian law enforcement and firefighting roles or went to other countries around the world. Some of the originals are in museums and some are used in media productions or other recreational uses. You could even buy a vintage 1966 Huey in full working order for as little as $500,000, while that is probably cheaper than getting one worth under a scale model. Museum visit is definitely the cheapest option. You could even do both at the same time. Now, as we come back into land after our flying tour through the history of the Huey, it will have to leave us here to keep working its busy life while we wait for our next airborne tour. They are topping off on vodka, I hear. So while we wait, let's dismount and brew up. Oh, before that, I'd like to give a shout out to our friends at Vixen's Miniatures. They can cover all your 3D printing needs, big or small, link in the description.